and then they splice in their own genes, and it's usually on a very low level. You can't take two entirely different species and breed them and have successful lives created from it if you do 50-50. And the percentage of DNA that's there is, I don't know. DNA is so incredibly complex and complicated and works in such weird ways that we don't understand yet. This assigning a percentage wouldn't even be appropriate because so much of it is hidden for future generations to get. But yeah, the tubes, they're clear. They're like a plexiglass type material. There's a green fluid in them, and it's aerated like a fish tank with bubbles and stuff that go through them. The bubbles go real slow. It's weird. I don't know. It may have to do with the gravity up there, but it doesn't rise as quickly as bubbles would here. And it's more of a goo in there, a thin consistency goo, not thick, not like a slime, but not water, thicker than water, but not much. And it has a filtration system. Each of the tubes is about 5 to 6 feet off the ground, 4 to 5 feet off the ground, and they have these black pipes. I don't know what they're made out of. They use almost entirely plastic-like materials, except for the outside of the ships, but much better than plastic. But that's what those tubes are made of, and it appears to me as though the fluid flows up, either from the top or the bottom. But the tube comes up from the bottom, it's black, and then you have the clear tube that the baby is in, and then black tube again that goes up to the top, and there's a filtration system to where it circulates that green fluid, and it's cleaned and just kept sterile and fertile. And if they need to add extra vitamins or whatever to it, they can do it to the child through this, and the child gets it through osmosis. And the tubes can be removed. The clear tubes can be removed from the black tubes. There's some sort of latch there that they can take them out, because I've actually held several of the tubes and looked at the hybrids, and the human fetuses aren't particularly cute, when they're not fully developed. So they look very human. I mean, some of them come out very great looking, but that's not the goal. They do have some hybrids up there that just look too much like aliens to be accepted down here, and they're kept up there. And other human hybrids who are still children are taken up, usually while they're sleeping, and they're all allowed to interact together and sort of develop their own social system that's very, very interesting. I could go on and on about the social system that the hybrids and the humans have, especially the kids, but they really work it out well. It's very, very impressive, and how they get along together. And there is still the element of social cliques in that group. It's very interesting. They really have to work with both species to get them to accept one another, but that does happen. They do work together, but there is that tendency for the hybrids up there to stay with the hybrids up there, and the kids down here that are hybrids to stay with themselves. And watching these kids while they're playing and interacting are all sorts of different beings. I mean, there's obviously human adult hybrids from down here, and I believe pretty much everybody up there's a hybrid, at least on one level. They're really very common. It's been going on for a long time, in the past, before this huge wave that's just happened. But they'll have a lot of old women up there. Different aliens will volunteer to overlook the children playing, because it's seen as something that's very important to do. There's absolutely no concern up there about an adult being doing anything to any of those children that's harmful to the child, which is really nice. That's something I wish we had down here as a parent myself. There is absolutely no concern of a pedophile or a abusive individual around the children, because everyone is so very much aware how important it is that these children have good beings to look after them and to teach them. And there's a lot of interactiveness. If there's a problem or something, it's just very much like we parent our children. We step in and we say, hey, this would be the better way to deal with it, and then you let them try it and let them go from there and kind of learn on their own. So that's the hybrid program in a nutshell. It's extraordinarily extensive, especially at this current time. There are more hybrids than you can imagine, especially in kids under the age of 15 right now on this planet. They are everywhere, and they're supposed to be. Their generation is going to be incredibly interesting to watch, and it all has to do with 2012. It's because it's a time of mass rapid evolution, and that's largely how this happens, is through the hybrid program. There are forces externally outside of this world that we don't get, has to do with 2012. They influence it as well, but a lot of those genes are spliced in. There are also a lot of hybrids that are my age, and I'm about 30. And I received an interesting comment from somebody, actually just today, they sent it. And they said something to the effect of they were watching a documentary I did talking about myself and things I know internally as an abductee that now that I have a greater understanding of it all, I know I've obtained through them directly. But I received actually several emails of somebody said a wave of emotion hit them when they heard what I said and some of the things I said. And I thought that was interesting. And somebody even said it's like it's been programmed into our DNA. You know, maybe a bunch of us would be surprised how many there are in our generation. And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And how very interesting you know that. You should just stay more in tune with what it is that you sense and what you know. Because you don't know it for no reason. It's put there by them, and it comes to the surface. And a lot of us are going through an awakening process right now, and are beginning to realize, if not fully realizing, what's going on in this world, at least somewhat, and that it's a time of change and a time for us to do certain things. And a lot of us have missions, and a lot of us don't know what that mission is, and myself included in that. Obviously, I feel at this point I'm here to help teach, I guess, from my experiences. But what I'm teaching is very, very basic. It's simple stuff in the big picture, but that's essentially the hybrid program. And to those who have the reaction to this, how dare they mess with our genes? You guys, there have been a lot of things in this world, in religion, as we've seen it as one of them, that have planted some really, really bad, wrong ideas in our minds as a society, and that's been done intentionally. And while I respect people's quote-unquote spirituality and religion, I do want to be honest with people, because collectively we all need to do a better job at identifying what these things are and how this works. And it's not that difficult. It takes work. But using logic, using reason, using your own intelligence to figure this stuff out is possible. And not only possible, but it's what an individual should do, not for themselves, but for the collective good of the entire world. Because these beings are real and out there and influence us. And I entertain other people's comments often. I figure if my beliefs can't logically stand up to someone challenging them, then my beliefs need to change. I think that's a very simple thing to know. But to believe the only truth to be found about the universe, the only real truth, is in a book, and I don't know when the last chapter was written, but roughly 2,000 years ago, is really not the best way to go, I don't think. I find it almost impossible that it hasn't been manipulated by leaders and rulers throughout that period of time. Everything else has been. And there's been a lot of new stuff that happened since then. And it all needs to be taken into account and looked at collectively. And the sooner we do that, the better off we all are. And I would guess I would just encourage everyone to run their beliefs through the ringer, take in some new ideas, and maybe incorporate them with your current beliefs. As a lot of them, I think, have a lot of truth to them. A lot of religions, I do. Closed-mindedness, however, that's a hit and a half that they don't want you to investigate any further into things, I think. But so anyway, I want to transition a little bit into our DNA and tell you a little bit about that. And DNA is really, really interesting stuff. And I think the coolest thing I've learned about DNA is that our actual experiences, our memories, absolutely everything that we take in during our lives is actually recorded on our DNA within our brain. There's an actual running record in there, and learning systems to access that is a very cool thing to do. And I'm actually gonna teach you guys a cool little trick on how to really increase your memory substantially towards the end of this. And feel free to try it. But if you think it's sorcery or whatever the hell, that's fine too. Don't worry about it. You don't need to remember anything. But it's all physically recorded. It's actually there. That memory becomes something within your body. And the cool thing about that is passed down from generation to generation when humans reproduce. You actually have in you the memory of your mother and father. And your mother, it comes from an earlier age. It's her earlier childhood, because eggs are formed sooner in life. But the father's sperm doesn't live real long. So the father passes down through his sperm everything that he's experienced until that point when the sperm is produced, which is very recent. So you actually have that in you. When people say, oh, in a past life, I feel like I did this. Well, that's what you're doing. You're experiencing what happened to one of your ancestors in one of their lives, because it's actually a part of you.